Hey guys, welcome to a brand new episode of Living It. It's been a while, but it's good to be back. My name is Aldrin, in case you forgot.
And my name's Sam. Great to be back here.
It's great to have you back, Sam.
Thank you, man. I think it's our second show together, isn't it?
It's our second show together. It's a pleasure always planning these shows with you. It's such
definitely.
fun.
I've had a great time just learning and just spending time with you, to be honest.
Having good banter.
Yeah. So, how have you been anyway?
I've been well. Yeah. So just in my last year of uni, now third year. So, like work's piling up, dissertation, other assignments, and I'm also basically doing a course which involves clinical placement. So I'm only at my university campus for 6 weeks. So I have to do my dissertation assignments while I'm on working full time, kind of. So it's getting busy.
Yeah, it must be busy. You've got a lot going on. Yeah, I see you're juggling ministry work and university.
Yeah, so that as well. That's where my heart is, obviously, to like just do the ministry side, just to be able to help young people and do all that things. But that's enough about me. Tell me about yourself. What's going on with yourself?
I've recently moved away to London for university.
Oh yeah. So I've been hearing things. So you're a self-proclaimed Londoner.
No, I'm no longer self-proclaimed. So
No longer.
There was one point where I was really excited about moving out. So I used to say I'm a Londoner, but now people are starting to see it.
I like your style though. Like as soon as you move to London, you've got a lot more quirky. And then I'm liking it. Your curls.
Oh, thanks.
Looking good.
The curls just naturally started coming as when I moved out, so I kept them, and it worked out pretty well, to be honest.
Sweet. Yeah, so guys, we just want to introduce a new series to you. We're really excited about this. So this new series is going to be on worship, and today's going to be the first episode on worship. And we just want to be really laying down the foundations, just talking about worship, not from a religious point of view, really, but talking about worship which is natural.
Yeah, I mean, at Living It, we like to be real. We're not going to come at you with stuff that you really won't understand. So we're just going to go from a really basic level, tell you exactly what it is and more about it and exactly why you should be doing it, if you should be doing it. And with that, let's just get into it.
So everybody, literally every single person is a worshipper. We are literally born worshippers, and whether you like it or not, you worship even at this right moment, even if you're not religious, even if you don't even believe in a God right now. And I want to tell you, you are actually worshipping something or someone even right at this moment. And what we mean by that is that the way we want to define worship is right now, is that worship is basically giving worship. And so whatever you give the most value to in your life is the object or the person who you worship.
So yeah, like how you mentioned the object or person, it's anything that you really give worth to. It's something that you hold of great importance. People worship their cars, people worship their bodies, all sorts of things. People worship other people. It's quite a deep subject, and we really can't wait to get into it. So, thing with worship is everyone sort of worships somebody, how we just stated earlier. So, for example, Beyonce. There's so many things like people who worship Beyonce. I mean, I think you were telling me earlier about somebody who said they had a spiritual experience going to one of her concerts and stuff. And, it's crazy because a lot of people genuinely are fixated on certain people, celebrities, sports people, and they do imitate them and try and be like them.
And generally thinking about it, if you look around or think about the people you know in your life, and you'll see that some of them are fixated with a single person, or some of them are fixated with a single thing. So some people, like I know from like maybe a few years ago, I know some of the guys were all about their cars. They'll spend money on their cars. They'll work night and day for their cars. They were literally worshiping that object. They would do everything. That thing, that car, had the most value in their life.
Yeah, so let's just ask the question, what is worship? We've said you worship, we've said everyone worships, but what actually is worship? To make it clear, we're going to talk about it from a natural sense first. So worship essentially is just giving importance to, as we said earlier, giving importance to something or someone, wanting to be like them, imitating them, and giving them worth and value, holding what they say to be important in your lives. And that can actually affect how you live your life. We'll see, what you worship makes you different. who you worship makes you like them. For example, like for people who like Drake and stuff, they sort of tend to copy how he dresses, they copy how he walks and talks and stuff, and it has a big effect on their lives. And you know, even Christians themselves, they can worship certain Christian artists. I know people who love Bethel. I love Bethel, but I don't worship them. They like to, they copy their style, they copy their clothes, they copy the way they speak and everything, and it's crazy how they do that, man.
It's cool. It's basically you imitate what you worship. And it's the same way with like what Sam was just saying, you know, like I see people all the time, you know, like girls, you know, like if you know, like I forgot who did it, like when the whole side, shaving one side of your head came in, and like if you know, and you would know this, like young people, especially in the UK, I don't know about the rest of the world, but all these girls started having shaved heads. Why this? You know why? Because I don't know whether it was Rihanna or it might be Rihanna who did this, and then. Like all these young girls started having shaved heads, and they were imitating the person who they worship.
Yeah, it's crazy how they do it. I mean, they don't even think about doing it. They don't even know they're doing it. They just do it. It's something they naturally do without having to put effort into it or anything. It's something it's like their go-to place. You know, as soon as somebody, like Aldrin just said, somebody shaves the sides of their head, they will go and copy them. They'll try and be like them.
And you know, like, so we are literally, like we were saying, from the moment really when we were born, obviously once we get our cognitive abilities and all of that, we were made, we're wired to worship. And to give like a child example, we'll see the children who watch wrestling and stuff, and they'll start to imitate that, and they'll have a kind of little wrestle, and they'll talk about that.
Yeah, even when I was younger, I used to watch a lot of Star Wars and run around with a stick pretending it's a lightsaber. And you know, it's crazy how you just imitate things that you like, and you worship that in essentially. But thing is that a good thing to do, Aldrin?
Well, it's not, because let us tell you why. And some of you might have even gone through this experience, because when you worship something that's not perfect, because worshiping something or someone that is not perfect will lead you to disappointment. So let me give you. I was speaking to a friend. And he was telling me how at one point in his life he idolized even Tiger Woods, the famous golfer. But as soon as my friend found out about as soon as my friend found out that Tiger Woods had got into this adultery and all this stuff, into immorality, he was really disappointed. And not only that, he stopped following Tiger Woods, he also stopped watching golf. You know, like, and he was so disappointed, and you know, like, so him idolizing and worshiping that character who was imperfect led him to disappointment, and even away from just that thing which wasn't wrong in and of itself.
See, here's the problem in itself. Everything is imperfect as it is. Every created thing is imperfect, and if you go and worship an imperfect thing, it will always lead you just to disappointment. I know so many people who, for example, fans of Justin Bieber, they have their own Belieber thing going on and stuff. And they, you know, when he started up, he was a really nice guy and stuff, and people really enjoyed his music and how he was as a person. And then he had this stage where he started going all crazy and doing all sorts of messed up stuff, and the whole world just attacked him. And they were really disappointed that somebody who could have been, who had potential to be a good person, just had wasted their time and talent. And
I just want to add, as believers, for those of you who believe in Jesus, and I know Justin Bieber does proclaim his belief in Jesus, and so as believers, we need to pray for him. This is just a side thing. I do pray for him, and I would urge every other believer to pray for him.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, there's so many people who are just so many famous people who are trying to take advantage of people worshipping them. For example, Jesus apparently has a new Bible coming out. Kanye West, where he's replacing every instance of the word God with his own name,
Jesus. Yeah,
it's crazy, and even how Drake calls himself the sixth God and stuff like that.
You know, there's so much of this kind of idolizing and self-proclaimed God. You know, like Jay-Z calls himself Jehovah from the name Jehovah. It's quite, honestly speaking, like, it's quite twisted, and how people, as you were saying, take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, worship as a word as the meaning has been changed over the past years, and worship has been made into a religious word. And when you say worship, people automatically think praise and worship and all that kind of stuff that goes on in church. But yes, it is a part of Christianity, but it's much more than that. That's the whole point. That people tend to worship without even realizing that they are worshiping.
Yeah, and now this is the thing. Worship is not a religious practice; it is human practice. As just what we've been saying is everybody worships something or another, but what defines your level or the truth or whether it's correct worship is what you worship. But everybody worships no matter what. It is human practice.
See, here's the thing. We can enhance our expression of worship. We can't be taught it, but we can enhance it. We can augment it. We can see, the more we practice it, the more we develop the expression of worship itself. Since we are designed to worship, that's what we do. We like if you intentionally begin to practice worship, you begin to pick up on things that can augment it and make it better for you. Thing is, it all comes down to now. We can worship. We do worship, but who should we worship? Because if we worship imperfect things, it leads to disappointment. So who exactly should we worship? And the only answer to that is the perfect being, and that is God himself.
That's right. So the only, as we said, if you worship something that's imperfect, so let's just give you some more examples of that before we go into God and his perfection and all his beauty and, how majestic and wonderful and supreme he is. But before that, let's just look at something else. Worshiping something imperfect. So let's take a car. And I know people worshiping cars and they die, literally speaking in that sense. They break down and you have to get a new car. You have to worship a new car. It's not sustained worship. Or sometimes people worship the way they look. Like for men, for men and female, both worship the way they look. And so for men, it's sometimes just like how much muscle they have, whether they have six packs, and all this type. They literally worship that thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't last.
I know so many people who love to just stand in front of the mirror and flex their muscles and then just take so many pictures on themselves and literally just worship their own bodies and their gains. But here's the thing, to worship that body themselves, there was a sacrifice made. They spent time in the gym, they cut down on what they wanted to eat, and they had to intentionally sculpt and make that body to worship.
That's so profound. Because if you say that, worship is a sacrifice in a religious setting, there's always this negative context of, it's hard, why should we do it? And, worship is a sacrifice. But, again, not religious. Look at natural. What Sam was saying, if you will sacrifice for the things you value. And that's all worship, even in the religious or godly context is.
Yeah, I mean, so many people hear the word sacrifice and they think it's something to be scared of. For example, you can tell somebody, go and sacrifice this, and they'll be like, oh no, I don't want to lose anything, I want to hold on to everything. Why is God telling me to let go of things and all that kind of thing? And essentially, when you worship something, when you want to give it all your attention, you will sacrifice whatever it may be, whether time, you will sacrifice time to spend thinking about that thing, just doing things that will make you more like that or bringing you closer to that goal if it is a goal. And you do sacrifice, and that's part of worship itself.
Yeah, I remember a time when me and my brother used to play games like on like the PlayStation, like Tekken and all that. And like I love food, right? And so like we'll be playing upstairs in my bedroom Tekken, and like literally my mom would be calling me downstairs to eat the food, and I would say no to the food. If I wasn't playing the game, I would not say no to the food. I would run down, eat them nice potato cake pronte. Like that's what it is. I love that food, but I sacrifice that because of the higher desire, the higher worship and value and the worth I put on playing games than eating. That's all sacrifice.
I love that. I mean, it's not that he didn't worship food or he didn't worship food as much as gaming. It's that he worshipped gaming more than the fact that he liked food. And it's not that he didn't like food or not that he didn't like gaming, or they were two separate things. There were two things that he really did love. There were two things he worshipped. But then It was the one that he gave more importance to, more worth to, that he gave attention to, and he sacrificed other things, and not necessarily bad things, but even good things.
Yeah, so today when we talk about worship, we want to just say that when we talk about worshiping in the context of God, so when we were just saying, so who should we worship? Because if I start worshiping food or gaming, all of those things, if I finish the game, if I'm the best at the game, soon enough I'm going to get bored of it, to be honest. And it happens if you play someone FIFA or something like that literally aren't good, there's no fun in it. And I don't know if you've experienced that. I'm not that good anyway, but that's the thing. That's why in that context we need to worship God for our worship to be everlasting, and for sustained worship, and for to have sustained fulfillment of our worship, and that's important. And we're looking at it. How do we know who to worship? And how do we know, what we worship and why we worship and how we worship that object or thing, really? And when we look at the natural way of doing it, when people worship, let's say Beyonce or any other, like just a person, they put so much worth on what they say.
Yeah.
There's so much worth. So so that's the whole point of the whole advertisement business and endorsements. If there's this hairspray and Beyonce is endorsing it, of course it's good. Of course it's good.
Of course you're going to listen to Beyonce. She knows what she's talking about.
Because you worship, because you put so much worth on what this person says.
Yeah, I mean, literally, they could sell you anything, but as long as Beyonce said it, you'll believe it. That's because you hold so much importance of what she says. And that is because of worship.
Mm-hmm. And so now what we want to look at is, if you want to worship the right person, the right being, which is God, the way to worship Him automatically means just like, so everything in every spiritual truth or every natural truth, a principle is a reflection of a spiritual truth or a spiritual principle. They're like almost like mirrors, because really they're one reality. But today, of our situation and circumstances, which we can't go into today, the natural and the supernatural are almost separated to the human experience. But anyway, so to worship God, we need to, just as people will go to put value on what other people say, or the object of or the person of the worship, we need to put value on what God says. And how do we find out what God says? By the word of God.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, so many people, if Bill Gates or somebody just releases an autobiography of how he got to where he was, or anything about him, people would read that, and because it's from him, they would believe it, and they would literally just follow it for what it is. So if he gave like a plan on how to get successful, people would read that, and because he said it, they would believe it.
And so many people do that.
They really do that. And it's the same way when we're worshipping God. God has given us His word. You read that, you listen to it, that is an act of worship in itself.
And we like to say this at Living, and I love this. It comes back over without even us trying to put this in the show, that we believe the Bible. And I have my iPad here. I don't even have like the actual Bible, but the Bible is here. We believe the Bible is the manual of life. It's the manual of life given to us by the manufacturer. The manufacturer, God manufactured us. He created us. And just like a car or a TV comes with a manual and tells us how to optimally use that device. Like if you want to get the best out of your camera, you need to read the manual or look up what the camera company says. And it's the same with us as people and creation. We need to look at what the Creator says about us and what we need to do to the best. And I love that analogy.
Yeah, I like what you said there. I mean, you can think it's without a manual, you can still use the camera, but it won't be good. It'll be dissatisfying. You'll come out with blurry pictures. You'll come out with a leakage in your car and stuff like that. It'll still work regardless of that. But it's not fulfilling.
It won't be the best quality.
It's not as intended. It's not as it should be. Whereas if you read the manual and you actually use it how it should, but thing is that includes sacrifice in other areas as well. It means you'll have to spend time out to clean your car. It means you'll have to go and learn what the different buttons on the camera does. It's sacrifice. But then because of that, you'll get a better outcome. You'll get better pictures. You get more miles on your car, and faster rate on your car. Everything.
Great. So if you've just joined us, let me just recap quickly, or just to recap even for the viewers, so what we've just been looking at. So we've been looking at that naturally we are just worshippers. Naturally we just worship. And worship defined as whatever you give the most worth to in your life is the object or the person of your worship. which we look at, should we give, and what then tells us is what should we give worship to? Should we give worship to people or things? We shouldn't, because they don't last. They're imperfect, so that's not satisfying. And there's only one perfect one, which is God. We should worship God. And how do we worship God? It's by looking at His Word, just as we worship another person, by valuing what they say. We worship God by valuing what He says. And now we're going to go into the Word of God and see what God says about worshiping Him. And seriously, when I talk about the Word of God, I have so much joy, because the Word of God is the best thing that's ever happened to me. The Bible is, just amazing. If you haven't read the Bible, read the Bible. If you don't find joy from the Bible, read the Bible. Ask the author to come and commentate on it, because that's what makes it so amazing for me. Not just that it's the Bible, not just that I read it, it's that the author who wrote the Bible commentates. Love it.
It's so good.
It's beautiful to me. But so, what does God say about how to worship
So
Him?
in His Word, He says, God is spirit, and those who worship Him must worship in spirit and in truth. Now, that's quite a mouthful, but what does that really mean?
You know what? This is, to God is spirit, and those who worship Him must worship Him in spirit and truth. That's in John chapter 4, if any one of you want to find it. God is a spirit being. And sometimes people try to put different kind of names and stuff on God, and trying to figure out who God is. And I have a lot of these conversations, of these kind of apologetic conversations of who God is, whether it's Trinity and all this. And I've come to a conclusion: you cannot describe spiritual realities with physical realities. You can make allegories with physical realities of the spiritual realities, but then they will never truly fit the spiritual reality. Let me explain why. Because the spiritual reality, we live in 4 dimensions, time being one of them. That's all we experience, and science has proven there's more than 15 dimensions at least. Anyway, so the spirit is the infinite dimensions, maybe. So you cannot describe a 3D object in 1D. It's not going to happen. You might be able to make an allegory, but it's not going to happen. So I'm not going to, again, try to describe what God is. God is spirit. But the beauty about it is we can connect to Him. Just because we cannot see, the beauty of it is this: just because we cannot connect to Him with our physical senses, we connect to Him in the spirit. I feel like I should share this example because it was very profound to me. I'm studying cardiac physiology, and we do, there's an ultrasound scan of the heart, which is called an echo. Or echocardiography, which is basically an ultrasound scan. Also, ultrasound scans are used for pregnant women to scan for the baby. The thing with the ultrasound scan, it uses sound waves, as the name suggests, ultrasound. And they're literally sound waves. The sound that you're hearing from my mouth right now, it comes to you in waves. And it's a physical property, the waves are. And the ultrasound waves are the same. It's a physical property, they're waves, but the frequency is different. However, human beings don't hear ultrasound. We can't. Dogs can, bats can, different frequencies. And so just because a person can't hear these, doesn't mean they don't exist, these waves, So what we did, we invented these sensors, receptors that can sense these waves. And that is, a person who doesn't have the Holy Spirit cannot connect with God on the spirit level. You don't have the sensor, the receptor. So that's why God is firstly telling us to get the receptors. And some people want to say, I don't want to worship God because I can't experience Him with my physical senses. That's not the point. The point is you must worship God, because that's the true essence of worship. That's what worship is meant to be. And the way to worship, you need to get this sensor, receptor, which is the Holy Spirit, with which you can connect to God.
So adding to what you just said about worshipping in spirit, that's a really good point. Do stick around. In the next show we're properly going to go into what it means to worship in spirit and truth. We're briefly touching on it now, but we really don't have time to get into it. But just briefly adding to that, worshiping in spirit is a lot more than it sounds. People conventionally, how they worship in churches and stuff, they sing praises and just extensions of prayers and stuff. And they could be saying it with their mouths and thinking it with their heads and stuff, but they're not really meaning what they say, and they're not really they're not really there when they say it. And by that I mean you could be saying, worthy are you, Lord, or anything like that, but you could be thinking about your next job interview, your next meal, and you could be thinking about all sorts of different things and not mentally or spiritually there.
And they don't give any value to it.
Yeah.
As we define worship, worship isn't singing, it's what you give value or how much worship to give. So if you're singing in church, Lord, I give you my life, I give you my heart, but your heart is in your car or with your mother or your father or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or in your own muscles, then you're not giving any value to what you're singing and what you're saying to God and what God is saying to you. That's not worship.
Yeah, that's spot on right there. It is definitely giving worth to something, and you could be saying whatever you want, but if you're not giving worth to those words, if you don't mean what you're saying, then you're not really giving genuine worship. It's counterfeit worship.
Yeah, it's people deceiving themselves into thinking they worship. And another aspect, just to wrap it up, really, is the thing where sometimes people think because they are skilled in an area and they offer that skill up to God, whether it be singing or playing an instrument or sounds or setting up, setting down, something like that. Where just because you give that skill to God, it doesn't mean you're worshiping, because worship isn't just the time you spend in church. Worship is your lifestyle, how much value you give to God all throughout your life. It's like this, when you worship your muscles, and that's what all you're about, you don't just think about building your muscles in the gym. You also live right, you eat right, you think about what you're going to eat, you buy the correct stuff, all of these things. It kind of saturates all throughout your life, and that's what truly worship is. It needs to saturate throughout all your life. It's not just singing or praising or dancing or one thing like that.
Yeah, to sum up what he just said, it's not a single event that happens every 30 minutes on a Sunday. It's a lifestyle that you continually just begin to spend time to actually think about it and to focus on it, to intentionally do it. I like the example somebody shared with me. They said, people like to take chicken out the freezer every Sunday and leave it to defrost, but then after Sunday they just put it back in the freezer and then they come back to it next Sunday and they're like, oh, quick, let's take it out again. And they don't really do anything with it. So, every Sunday they get all fired up and they're all ready and stuff, and then they go back to doing whatever they were doing, and they don't really think about or intentionally doing anything about it.
We're getting deep now.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the thing is, we're running out of time today, and you gotta come back and watch the next episodes of this series, and we're gonna take you step by step, break you down, and we're gonna be talking about what worship is next show, what it means to worship in spirit and truth, and then we're also gonna be talking about the expressions of worship. How does worship, transcend your spirit, your soul, and your body? So guys, just want to wrap this up right here. And be blessed, and just keep living it, man. Like in every area of your life, we want to encourage you, just go out there and keep living it.
Keep living it.